today I bring another content that it's extremely important for you in this last stage of high school now that you're gonna start your university career. And we're gonna talk about the thesis and everything related to this. So it's really important that you understand these concepts and the structure of a thesis. I obviously not gonna go very deep on this matter. You're gonna have a lot of subjects along the way that is gonna give you a lot more explanations of certain context. So right now I'm just gonna give you like a very simple information that is very useful for you right now. So before we can start thinking about writing anything, we need to have a clear definition, we need to have the structures clear, and we need to understand what are we going to do, what we need to develop this structure, okay? So let's start by defining the word thesis. You've heard it before, you're working on it right now. So the technical definition, it's a document that it needs to be submitted in support of a candidate for an academic degree or a professional qualification, okay? You will present a research and some findings about a certain topic, okay? In some contexts, the word thesis is used a part of a bachelor's or master course, okay? To simplify this, we can say that the thesis is a written paper that is presented to achieve an academic degree in any areas or levels. For example, right now you need to present a thesis in order to achieve your academic level of a high school degree, okay? So basically it means that to graduate, you need to write this paper and present it to a jury. There are a lot of different ways that you can write this paper, and we're going to be discussing some of them today, okay? So first, let's talk about the basic structure that this thesis, this writing paper needs to have, okay? It's very important that you understand that before getting into any of the writing, you need to have your argument or your problem to be discussed or your topic. You need to know what are you going to talk about. That's the first step, choosing your topic, okay? After that, we have the introduction that basically gives you a summary of the topic, the methodology, and the significant things that you have in this paper, okay? Then you have the literature review, where you review relevant books or different books or literature that it's relevant to the point and the research that you're having. Then you have a methodology chapter where you explain how your research went down and what things you designed or what methods you use to research, to collect data, to analyze it, and be used in this paper, okay? The findings chapter, it's an outline of what this research gave you. And the next one, is the analysis and discussion. It's where you analyze and discuss your results and your findings. And the conclusion will show some judgment or decisions reached by the thesis. Basically, it's the final statement or the final solution or the establishing, a solution for the primary problem presented in the paper, okay? Like I said, this is a basic structure. It's a very simple structure of a thesis, and this could change according to the level and the subject that you're gonna be working on for the thesis, okay? I put you here an image that I think it's really useful, and it gives you like a little hint of how you can choose the statement for your thesis. It says your thesis statement should show exactly your position. Make sure your thesis statement reflects the type of paper you're writing. Your thesis statement should be concise, and place your thesis statement, place your thesis statement at the end of the first paragraph of your introduction, okay? I think I already talked about this in some previous videos. I told you that in order to make sure that the reader understands your statement, you should put it at the end of the first paragraph of the introduction. Okay, so now let's talk about the process step by step, okay? The first thing that you need to do is analyze your sources, okay? To find out the topic, it's really fun to look about interest or controversy or complications or maybe a point of tension in the subject or the topic that you're going to talk about. Figure it out why you will put on the pad to develop this working thesis. I said it in a previous video. Having a reason of why you're writing this, it's really important because it will give a lot more strength to your working process, okay? Like I said, without the why, probably you only have an observation, and that is not the point of a thesis. So things like metaphors and poems and things that are really vague are not theses, okay? So once you have a working thesis, start writing it down, okay? There is nothing more frustrating than having a great idea and then when you go to work on it, you just forget about it. So everything that comes on your mind, just write it down, okay? Remember that at the beginning, you're going to have a really high draft of everything you want to talk about, and then you're just going to condense it in just one paper. So at the beginning of the process, it's really important that you just start writing it down. Write everything down because that is a brainstorm. And at the end, you're going to just collect the best ideas of what you wrote. Okay, so by writing it down, you will be forced to think clearly, logically, and consciously, okay? So, like I said, this is a rough draft, and you're probably going to have to go over that and actually select the information that it will work for you. Okay, keep your thesis prominent in your introduction. A good standard place for your thesis statement is at the end of the introductory paragraph. We've talked about this before and in a previous video. Remember that when you're writing, you're probably doing a lot of scheming and not necessarily reading the whole thing. So this is a very good point of where to put your statement because it ensures you that the reader will see the statement and will understand the statement, okay? Especially when you're doing like short essays, this is a really great technique. Anticipate the counter-arguments. Once you have your statement and once you have your working thesis, you need to think about the things that could go against it, okay? This will help you redefine the thesis and it will make you think about arguments that you might need in order to answer those counter-arguments. So it will give you like a whole picture of how things can go on while you're writing your thesis, okay? Remember, every argument has a counter-argument. Everything is refutable. We talk about that in the days previous of the parliamentary debate. Everything that you put on the table could be absolutely counter-argument, okay? So, we've been talking about the statement of a thesis, the topic of the thesis. So let's define what this statement is, okay? The statement of the thesis, it's what it's going to tell the reader the significant subject that we're discussing, okay? The statement is where it's going to tell me, the reader, what are you talking about and what are we discussing here, okay? It's basically a roadmap of the paper, okay? It tells the reader what to expect in this paper that you're writing. Answers the questions asked by you. So it's an interpretation of a subject, okay? It's the topic or the subject of an essay could be World War II or Moby Dick. But the thesis, it's how do you understand the World War II or the novel, okay? So let me rephrase this. The topic or the subject of your thesis could be World War II. But the thesis is the way you understand World War II, okay? In your statement, you're making a claim that someone can dispute, like I said before. the statement is an argument. So there's someone that's going to have a counter argument to what you're writing. It's usually a single sentence, okay? And like I said before, it's usually near the last paragraph of your introduction. Okay, so a thesis is the result of a long thinking process, okay? Formulating a thesis, it's not the first thing that you're going to do. Like I said, before you start writing, you need to develop an argument. You need to select a topic and then develop an argument, and then you have to collect evidence, and then you need to organize this information, like your evidence, your facts, any relevant literature. Maybe you're going to do some interviews. So first you need to collect all of that information, then you need to organize it in order to know what is actually important for your paper, what is necessarily on your paper. And once you do all of this thinking process, you will probably have a working thesis. So it's about all the things that you need to do prior sitting down to work on the thesis, okay? So remember that in the thesis, you present a main idea or an argument that you think could be discussed, and you need to present evidence to support that argument, okay? So when you have your first draft of your thesis, you can ask yourself the following questions in order to know if you're going on the right path. Do I answer the questions, okay? Reading the main statement after constructed can help you fix an argument that misses the focus of the question, okay? Remember that you have a problem and that problem needs to be solved, or you need to point out some evidence or facts to that problem. So you need to make sure that you're always going down that path, answering to that first problem or that first statement. Have I taken a position that others might challenge, okay? If your thesis just presents facts that no one can disagree with, then it's possibly that you are just providing a summary of things and not actually a thesis. Is my thesis statement specific enough? If the thesis statement is too vague, you won't have a strong argument, and for so, it's going to be very easy to refute, okay? Does my thesis pass the so what test? I think this is very interesting because it will show you if the thesis is actually interesting to other persons besides you, okay? You need to make sure that all the information is clear enough so anyone else can read it, understand it, and know where you're going, okay? Does my essay support my thesis specifically? If your thesis and the body of your essay do not seem to go together, one of them has to change. If your first statement goes with the World War II and in the middle of your writing process, you're talking about probably World War III, then you're just not going on the right path, okay? You're not answering your main question, and you need to check again everything that you wrote. And the last question that it will be really good to answer is, does my thesis pass the how and why test? Okay, if the reader first response is how or why to your thesis, maybe you're too open and you're not guiding the reader where you want to go, okay? So you need to rewrite your thesis, your whole process, to see what else you can add so the reader can take on your position since the beginning, okay? So the reader can understand what you're talking about since the beginning. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can understand better these things that I just explained, okay? Let's say that we're taking a 19th century American history course and the instructor hands down this assignment. Compare and contrast the reasons why the North and the South fought the Civil War. So, this is what you type. The North and the South fought the Civil War for many reasons, some of which were the same and some were different. As you can see here, this is very open and very vague, okay? It's not giving us enough information. So, this thesis asks the question without So this thesis doesn't give you any additional information, okay? It doesn't tell the reader where you're going, okay? So the reader would automatically think, okay, but what are the reasons? How are they same? How are they different, okay? So you need to ask these same questions to yourself so you can start beginning and compare, okay? For example, the South believed that slavery was right and the North thought slavery was wrong, okay? Now, again, this is too vague, so you need to go a little bit more deep on that statement. So you need to interpretate and look the evidence, okay? So you can decide where you're going to argue, okay? So the North believed that slavery wasn't moral, and the South believed that it was a way of, the slavery was their way of life and the way they were able to keep their ranch workings, okay? So you can now write, while both sides fought the Civil War over the issue of slavery, the North fought for moral reasons and the South fought to preserve its own institutions, okay? Now you can say that you have a working thesis, okay? Include the reasons for the war and some idea of how these two sides disagree over this reason, okay? You might decide that both sides fought for moral reasons, and then you focus on the different moral issues that both sides got. Like the main reason here is that they fought for moral reasons, but they fought for different moral reasons, and then you have your track to work on your thesis, okay? So you ended up with a final argument for your paper that it could look like something like this. While both Northern and Southerners believe they fought against tyranny and oppression, Northerners focus on the oppression of slaves, while Southerners defend their own right to self-government, okay? Remember that for a long time, the South believed that if they accept the abolition of slavery, they will lose their independence as states, okay? So you can compare this to the original thesis and then present a way of interpreting evidence, and that will give you the significance of the question. There is no wrong or right answers here. There's only strong and weak arguments and strong or weak use of evidence. So you need to be very careful of the way you write your statements and the way you use your evidence, because if it's weak, it's easy to refute, okay? So now that we have developed our thesis, we need to focus on the conclusions, okay? The conclusions are a really important part of any essay, of any paper, and you need to be very strong to close your paper, okay? So once you have developed your main statement, you will do your research, you will organize your information, your ideas, and you will start writing your final paper, okay? And then comes the conclusion. This is where you emphasize that your research and objectives have been achieved, okay? You also emphasize that the most significant results and the limitations and the suggestions that your research gave you, okay? So in the conclusion, you're going to say actually what happened and if your problem has or doesn't have a solution. And if it has a solution, what is the solution, or why it doesn't have a solution, why you cannot do anything else. So the conclusion needs to give all of the answers and all of the closure that the paper needs. I think we talked about this in the previous video of the essay. So you need to be very careful that you don't leave any loose ends on your paper, and if you do, make sure that you close them down on your conclusion. As usual, I'm going to give you with a couple of resources so you can go a little bit deeper in everything that we discuss in class, and then you can have it as support for your next papers and your next theses and your next essays and all of these things that you're going to be doing in the future. So the first one, it's a resource from the Dalhousie University. It's from the Writing Center's research, and it has a guide of how you can organize your information, how you can start your statements, and it's a really, really nice piece of information that you should check. In the link that you have here, you will find a page that it will give you an interactive example of how to write your statements. So there you can start writing down, and the page will correct you while you write. And here you were gonna find a YouTube playlist on how to build a thesis statement. There are 4 videos. They're from the Simon Fraser University, and they're really interesting. They're short and very easy to digest, and it gives you a lot of key points of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're writing your thesis and your statement, okay? And the last one, it's also a YouTube video that, again, it's short and it's easy to digest, and it gives you key points on how to write a thesis for beginners. I am totally aware that this is the first time that you're writing a thesis in order to graduate as a high school, but you're going to be doing this for a very long time in your academic career, and not just for your university degree, but if you got a master's or a PhD, you're going to need this information. Obviously, while you get higher in the education levels, it's going to request a lot more of you, but at least here you have like the key points where you can start, okay? As usual, if you have any questions, any doubts, or just want to leave me a comment, you can go to the Google Classroom, you can contact me through the Hangouts application, or you can send me an email. We're very close to the end, guys, so I really hope that all of this information that I just gave you actually works for you right now and in the future, and hopefully you can refer to this at some moment that you need it, okay? Well, see you in the next class, guys. Bye.